Hi guys, I'm going to be talking to you today about my lesson plan on grammar. This is my second lesson plan that I've done this semester. The first one was actually just kind of a redo of my first lesson plan from the first semester that I was a TA. And that one was on quote integration. So it mainly focused on how to properly integrate a quote, including punctuation and including content. And when I got their midterm review discussion board posts, a lot of them seemed to like that more specific, um, maybe a little bit into the weeds lesson plans. So I wanted to do another one of those about grammar because a lot of them have trouble with it when they are doing their discussion board posts and their reflections. And even my professor said that he sees a lot of issues with grammar because it's something that is kind of let go a lot in college classes because it's assumed that students know how to properly use commas or how to identify run-on sentences, that kind of thing. Even when they don't, even when they didn't, maybe they didn't even go through it in high school. So I wanted to give them an opportunity to ask questions about grammar and kind of open up a discussion about different grammar issues that they may be having that they could be more embarrassed to ask their professors because they feel like they should know it already. And I also wanted to emphasize that, I'm not perfect at grammar and it's something that they should be striving for and they should be constantly working on and thinking about while they're doing their assignments. It's something also that I feel like could really help their grades. A lot of the times when I'm grading their discussion posts, I'll put like one grammatical error or two grammatical errors, and that'll bring down their grade a point. And I don't typically have enough room to get into what those grammatical errors are and why they're wrong. And so I feel like this was the perfect opportunity for me to do that. As you can see, the objective of the lesson plan was to properly use the commas, identify run-on sentences, and just generally solve issues that they've been having with grammar that I've been noticing, that my professor had been noticing. Um, the time limit is so small, basically because I had to fit this in during our regular lessons. We haven't really met much since spring break, so there hasn't been a whole ton of time for in-person class time. And I wanted to fit this in as quickly as possible. Also because it's such like a simple subject, it doesn't require a whole ton of time, and it's something that they mostly already know, but maybe just need a review on. So I'll show you what I did and how it went. I tried to include as many pictures as possible. As you can see, like I have a few fun pictures. This is comma, 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 chameleon. Because I feel like pictures will typically help them pay more attention in these kind of more maybe mundane lesson plans. Uh, so when I did my little presentation on commas, I purposefully left out the comma in the example sentences. Here I have one just to show that there's another one, because I wanted them to answer the question basically on where to put the comma. And for the most part, they were able to do it super easy because I have the instructions right there. So I don't think that that was necessarily a good idea. If I were to do this again, I probably would just put the commas in and then they could engage with it more in the more practice section, which comes later. This part of the lesson actually worked pretty well. I had them break into groups and go through all of the sentences and insert commas, and then I kind of cold called them for answering each individual one to make sure that their assumptions were correct. For the most part, they did pretty good on it. A lot of them struggled with when there was like maybe more than one comma, or if there were no commas. Um, but after the lesson plan, I put in the commas and sent it to them so that they could reference back to the PowerPoint when they were doing their assignments. I think that this really worked for the quote integration lesson plan, because a few of them said that they actually referenced back to the PowerPoint when they were doing their rhetorical analysis. So maybe this is something they could even use beyond the English 101 class. And they can kind of have that in their saved on their computer in case they ever need to reference back to it. I talked a little bit about run-on sentences. I really wish that I had given them more of an opportunity to engage with this. If I were to do this lesson plan again, maybe I would have asked them for an example of what they thought was a run-on sentence, maybe in their own writing, or asked them if they knew what consisted of a run-on sentence. I think that this is a place where a lot of engagement could have happened, considering that a lot of them struggle a lot with run-on sentences in their discussion board posts, and a lot of times even in their final papers this comes up. So yeah, if I were to do this lesson plan again, I would definitely try to have them bring in examples themselves. A lot of this section here was focused on issues that my professor saw in the final papers related to grammar. So incorrect capitalization, they also do this a lot in their discussion posts, where they don't capitalize like English, or they'll capitalize high school, that kind of thing. They just often forget a lot of the capitalization issues. So this is just a really, really quick crash course in how to solve those problems. He said that miswords and misspellings were often the most common type of grammatical issue that he saw in the final papers. So I gave them a little bit of advice to run their paper through a type-to-speech website. I think it's really important in lesson plans to give a little bit of personal experience, and I feel like including this might be really helpful, because it's super helpful to me to run my paper through a type-to-speech website. And I also gave them the link to the website that I use so that they can use that as well to help their papers. Part of the reason why we're TAs is because we can kind of bring a student perspective, and I feel like this is kind of doing that. So if you were to adapt this lesson plan, definitely try to include something personal that you use that helps you, or something, or like maybe a website like that. And I also went over their incorrect uses of semicolons and dashes. I wanted to emphasize that they can use like other schools' writing center resources. This is from UNC, and this was a really great website to help me use semicolons and dashes, because a lot of the time it's very, very difficult to understand when to put in a semicolon or when to put in a dash. This lesson plan was really effective, I think, because it brought up a lot of issues that I commonly see. If you were going to adapt this, one of the main things that you want to focus on is issues that your students have. So if you see your students have a lot of trouble with semicolons and dashes, maybe you would want to go into that and make that the main focus of the lesson plan. One thing that I do recommend is trying to maybe incorporate a longer activity so that they can work together and they can discuss amongst themselves different grammatical issues that they have. I do wish that they would have brought up more at the end. Like I tried to leave 5 minutes for them to ask questions that they've always been a little confused about, but never really had the courage to ask. And almost none of them did that. A few of them asked about like specific comma issues, but a lot of them didn't bring up their own issues. So something that you might want to think about is giving them a bit of a heads up about this presentation, and maybe to come with questions that they commonly see in their papers. But yeah, I just definitely think that you can use this for pretty much any writing class or any class that requires writing, really, because it is so universal. And I think that it's a really important part of English 101 because the whole point of it is to get them to learn how to write. And a lot of writing is understanding how to properly use grammar. Thanks for listening, guys.